All right, Ike. Well, in the news this week, tagging on from last week's episode about the Bond Bowler 90 60 60 Bond 60 Bond 60 Bowler 90. That's it.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Well, so it actually, I think something I left out in last week's episode was that it's an actual Bowler Challenge car. Like they're campaigning it in the Great British Bowler Challenge. Coincidentally, you also got a comment from one of our beloved listeners about the Bowler Challenge and the fact that those Bowler Challenge cars, as long as registered and insured, you can drive them on the road in the UK. So you could drive your Bowler 90 to the Bowler Challenge, and hopefully you don't crash it, and then you could drive it home.
Wonder how that affects your insurance rates there. You know, the insurance is pretty particular in the UK with regards to modifications.
Right.
I always see these questions online like, I put a high-lift jack in my car. Should I let my insurance company know? And, you know, for those of us here in the U.S., that just sounds ridiculous. Like, how does that affect your, liability? But they seem to think that if you have a high-lift jack in your car, that makes you more likely to get your vehicle stuck and damaged, and you're placed in a higher risk category or something. So you have to let your insurance company know whatever modifications they are. So if you have a Bowler a race car, Land Rover,
you're just driving
what does that
around
do to
Chelsea.
your insurance rates? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, here, you can literally, if you can get a plate on that thing, you can literally drive anything you want. I watch a YouTube channel, this guy who is converting his, I think I've sent it to you, he's converting his military Humvee from the diesel, from the 6.5 liter GM diesel over to an electric car. He's putting in batteries from a Tesla, he's doing the whole electrification thing. And he just recently went to the DMV. And after 10 minutes in the DMV, they're like, yeah, okay, it's electric, no problem. And he's like, it costs $10 and like 15 minutes of time. And then he's like, well, surely my insurance company will have a problem. And again, 15-minute phone call with the insurance company. They're like, cool, it's electric, no problem. And like, this guy has built this car in his garage at home, like out of parts he's bought off the internet. It just seems like, shouldn't it be more? I mean, I'm glad it isn't more difficult than that, because, that's kind of awesome. The fact that you can basically just Mad Max stuff here. And as long as you, sort of, I don't know, as long as you tell people, I guess, they don't have a problem with it. But the idea of driving a Bowler Challenge car around the UK is amazing. But then again, trying to get to Bob Ives' farm, a Bowler Challenge car would be really handy. I think that would be, for that.
I think it's a pair of hedge trimmers would be handy just to get cut through.
God almighty. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we saw it a number of times and just couldn't find the right, crazy road to get there. So
I feel like most of England, if you just viewed it from a satellite photo, would just be a hedge maze. It's
just a hedge maze. Yeah. You can't find it. There's so many dead ends. It doesn't make any sense. Some guy's coming the other way, like towing a horse trailer with a Geo Metro. It's just a total... It's a free-for-all out there. It's a good time. Anyways, so the Bowler Challenge, which is something that I wish, the Bowler Defender Challenge, which I wish is something we had here in the United States. And I think now there's technically nothing precluding us from having it here. It used to be that it was done with the original Defender, and so obviously we couldn't have that here. We hadn't had that here for decades. It would be impossible. But what makes, maybe we should give Joe a call and ask him, hopefully head injury is completely cleared up now. Or maybe we should call Wyclef and see what his thoughts are on it.
No.
But what precludes us from having a Defender Bowler Challenge here? Like, why we have the car, we certainly have rally events here. It seems like it would be fun. And you can buy, Porsche GT cars, all kinds of stuff where they come with the built-in race and everything. And they, that's certainly a thing that people do here. So I don't know. I think if maybe our listeners can start a letter writing campaign and get the Bowler Challenge brought to the United States. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Are you going to spearhead that effort?
Yeah, we'll field an underpowered car in that challenge, and that's how we'll, any excess money we have will be burnt up by our Bowler Challenge car. I don't know. Anyways, it's just something to think about, and I think if everybody got behind it. But anyways, the driver of the Bond 60 Defender 90 Bowler Challenge Bowler 9060 car, a gentleman named Mark Higgins. which is a super British name. He was a stunt driver for the previous 4 James Bond films. And so in partnership with Land Rover, they stuck him in there with his co-driver, Claire Williams. And do you think she's any relation to Williams Classics, the Land Rover seller? Because Williams Classics also has a Defender 90 Bowler Challenge, not Bond 60, but just a regular one. I wonder if there's some relation there.
I couldn't say. Yeah, that might need further research.
Yeah. Anyways, a simple Google would have figured that out. But again, well, we're not doing that. Leave it to you guys to do that. Screaming at your radios right now, all across the United Kingdom, saying, of course, it's this or that. And if we, we hope to frustrate you on your morning commute. So Mark Mark and Claire fielded this car in the North Wales leg of the Wales, famously where my favorite British soap opera Stella is from. Working in Belfast for all those years, I got hooked on Stella, the British soap opera.
Developed a taste for it.
Oh, did I? I can't. I love it. It's a great show. Anyways, so they actually managed to win the Wales leg of the Defender Bowler Challenge. Funny that a essentially professional racing driver could win the amateur Defender Bowler Challenge, but hey, good for them. That's awesome. That's super
congratulations
cool.
to Mark Higgins and Claire Williams.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, and that really cool looking. It's cool to see some of the photos and stuff of that little Bond bowler jumping around and the doing its rally thing. It looks really cool. I love the matte black paint with the gold.
I like the smaller diameter wheels that aren't like 23 inches in diameter.
Yeah, exactly. And the rally rims and everything. Now, theoretically, though, they would have had to have. Well, no, I think that's the smaller motor that they put in the bowler cars. I don't think it has the bigger motor that requires those bigger front brakes that makes putting like decent size wheels on the car an issue. So for whatever reason, I don't know if Bowler does any more modification outside of that to the brakes. But yeah, they've got nice little spokey rally wheels on them as opposed to.
Does an F1 car have like 23-inch wheels on it? I don't think it does.
It does. They've gone to a much bigger wheel this year for the new generation Formula One car. But yeah, nowhere close to like the big 22s. And they have hubcaps on them again.
They probably have like decent brakes. Those cars, huh?
Yeah, I got pretty good brakes.
Why can't Land Rover do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, so check out that Mark and Claire's bowler winning Bond 60
Bowler 90
Bowler Defender 90. So it's pretty cool. So Ike, what's happening up there at ye old Pangolin 4x4? What do you got going on in the workshop?
Some cars are leaving. Some cars are coming.
Ooh.
Sadly, our 1957 Volvo Suga Command car has been sold, and it is off to a new home. So that radio car, for those of you not familiar, you guys should check that out. It's an incredibly cool Volvo 4-wheel drive from the 50s, and it's very Mad Max. It looks like a taxi cab with a military truck chassis, and it's got radios and antennas and roof hatches and bicycle racks and all this crazy Scandinavian weirdness going on. It has vacuum air lockers with like brass knobs on the dash, and it's a really neat car. And I've had it for about 7 years, and finally it found a new home. So I will no longer be able to enjoy that car, but that was a great one. So that one's going away. Some project cars finished up, mostly service work type of jobs, small refurbishments on series Land Rovers, and then we have some cars coming. Got a really nice Patina 88 limestone factory North American soft top car, which is kind of unusual. We didn't get a lot of soft tops here.
Yeah, that's true.
So it has all the little factory soft top cleats and fittings and that stuff, and no evidence of ever having a rear door, which is not common for the 2As here in North America. Most of them were regular hardtops or station wagons. So that's a neat one. I'm excited to see that one. Definitely a gamble. Didn't see it in person before we bought it. So we'll see. Could be Could be good, could be bad. We'll have to let our listeners know when it shows up how we did.
You vote. We'll take, how about this? Take a picture of it when it first arrives, and we'll do an Instagram poll to see what the thinking is on it, and then you can do an update on the show to say how much of a basket case or not. Maybe you won the Land Rover lottery, and then maybe it's actually in great shape.
It's always a gamble to buy something sight unseen, especially something that's not currently running and driving. So it is a little bit of risk. So we'll see how that one turns out. But it looks really cool. It's got a good patina. It's got original elephant hide seats. It's got some, nice features that make it seem like maybe it's not been messed with too much. But time will tell. So that one should be here in a couple of days, I suspect, and we'll know for sure. And then let's see, got another 88. This one is in pieces. Cool. We'll have to have Linus on the show and talk about the recovery effort for this car. Linus convinced me to buy this. It belonged to a friend of his. I'm pretty confident he got a kickback from that friend.
It's what you call a boondoggle. That is.
Oh man, he's like, it comes with all these new parts, and it's
sure.
it's restore, or it's like partially restored, kind of a project that somebody gave up on, and I can see why they gave up.
I was going to say, there's always a reason that someone gives up on that restoration project. Yeah,
he's like, it has all these new parts that he bought for it. Well, the new parts were in plastic totes that had filled with rainwater and been left to sit for several years. So they were populated with mosquito larvae and other nastiness. And it had he told me it had a rolling chassis, it was not in fact rolling. It was missing the rear axle, and the front axle had the hubs taken off. And it was sitting in this guy's yard with the engine installed in it. And so the guy had no way to move it. And it was had 6 tarps laminated over the top of it. And those had grown into the guy's lawn. And so we had to, it was horrible. That was definitely a boondoggle.
More of an archaeological expedition than a Land Rover
It was bad. It was bad. I told Linus, I was like, if I had known how bad this was, and the guy told me it was free, I would not have come to get it. And so we spent the better part of a day excavating that mess from this guy's yard. And I'm pretty sure, he said he was elderly and he had to take some breaks from helping us, but I'm pretty sure he was just going out back of his house to laugh at us.
Yeah. He needed to take frequent laugh breaks because he was posting on Instagram. Look at these guys. Yeah.
So I'm bound and determined that I'll put this thing back on the road and show everybody that it'll work out. But it's a big hassle that I didn't need.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, and I'm sure Linus is enjoying my my Bug Eye 2A, which is we know his favorite car. He loves that car a lot. I mean, he's asked to buy it several times, and I keep saying it's just not. There's a sentimental value to it that I just can't. I know he's extremely fond of it. It is, I think, far and away his favorite Land Rover of all time. Yeah. So yeah.
I think you're right.
Well, we'll see.
Should talk what the summer brings. One wagon, and maybe you could trade him.
Yeah, just straight trade. Maybe. I don't know. I know how much he loves it though, so maybe just to help him out.
Anyway, that's what's new at the shop. So we'll have to post some pictures on the Instagram of that horrible mess.
Oh yeah, for sure. People have got to see you digging out trenching out that Land Rover. That sounds great. We had to drag this chassis with an engine block in it, all the way up this guy's driveway and onto the trailer. It was bad. That sounds wonderful.
Oh yeah, if you could make a Land Rover less mobile, I don't know how you can do it unless you just filled it with concrete.
Even then, maybe, it would be, yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, not much going on here. We did a little bit of steering work on the Defender because it's getting.
Does it steer yet?
Yeah, it's just fine now. It just needs a little tightening up.
Steers on its own.
Steers completely. Yeah, just kind of goes wherever. You're sort of going along with it, but no, it's all tightened up now. Of course, it's a left-hand drive North American spec Defender, so the power steering pump and hoses are right over top of and the distributor, of course, are right over top of where the one little adjuster bolt needs to be. Of course, on a right-hand drive vehicle, there's like nothing at all in the way. It's the easiest thing. It takes 10 seconds to do it. Here, no, it's in the midst of a bunch of other stuff, and I thought that the bolt was seized right on there and didn't have the force of will to turn that bolt hard enough. But thankfully, Chris came over. Chris, of course, who doesn't listen to the show, and with no regard at all to a new steering box in the car, just broke it open, and it was fine. Now, it didn't destroy it. It actually did just loosen the bolt, and we could adjust it. But could have as easily just destroyed the steering box. So it's nice to know that, no sense of care at all. I'm just happy to just turn that bolt until it breaks or comes loose, whichever one. It doesn't matter to him. So
sometimes it's a relief when the bolt breaks. You're like, whew.
Oh, yeah. Anyways,
it's fine. Like your friend that's like relieved that his wife leaves him.
Yeah, it could be one of those situations. Yeah,
that's over.
Yeah. We needed a new steering box anyways, but I had to adjust it because it needed to steer for Liza, who's going to do some Rebel rally training here. And so it was like, if we broke the steering box, then we would have to rent a Jeep from Alamo. If it doesn't break, then I can adjust the steering and it'll be fine. So it was would have set that weekend in a completely different path, but now she'll be going in the Defender, and all is well, and as God intended. So so that's going along, and it was otherwise battening down the hatches here because I'm going to be shooting for a couple of weeks, so there will be very little time spent over here. So we're making sure that the resident bugs and rodents don't carry off anything important while I'm gone. And going from there. So speaking of Land Rovers buried in the earth and rodents carrying off important parts, we're going to do another installment of everybody's third favorite segment, What to Look For when buying, this week, a Series 80-inch Land Rover. So we've done this sort of overview of, like, generally speaking, what to look for when buying a Series Land Rover, and we thought we might take a little deep dive down into some specific models. And as most people know, I think there's quite a range of Series 1s, so we thought we would just focus on the very popular, very early, and much beloved by Ike and I, and the Underpowered Hour logo, the 80-inch Land Rover, the very first of the Land Rover. So, Ike, what is something that you look for when buying an 80-inch Land Rover?
Well, I don't have a lot of willpower, so if it's an 80-inch Land Rover, I'm typically willing to buy it.
Yeah, if you don't already have 20 or 80-inch Land Rovers, if you only had to have one, what would you look for?
80 inch is definitely one of my favorites. And for those listeners that aren't familiar, it's kind of the archetype. It's the original format for a Land Rover. And that typically means a soft top. It typically means obviously a short wheelbase, 80 inches, which is the same sort of dimensions as a lot of vehicles of the period. Obviously, it's the same as a Willys Jeep. It's the same as a Volkswagen Beetle. It's the same as a Mini. There were a lot of vehicles of this time period that were developed in this sort of immediately post-war era that had that size format, and it's quite small. It's the smallest of all the Land Rovers produced, and it's definitely the cutest. It has a lot of personality, really low body line. So when you sit in it with the door tops off, your knees actually stick out of it with the windshield folded down. Mm-hmm. You drive it. It has that like sort of motorcycle or magic carpet sort of feel when you're driving this car. You almost ride on it instead of in it. It doesn't come
which is
up
for the
over
best
you.
Because in an accident you want to be thrown clear of it and not be trapped inside of it.
Definitely want to be thrown clear of that Land Rover. It's completely unsafe, but it is a lot of fun, and it is a great vehicle, and a lot of them still exist. This is a car that there is a big enthusiast movement for. There's a generally good parts availability for, and a lot of people are restoring these cars and using them. It's a very practical car of that time period. It's pretty fun to use. The gearbox and controls and all of that are going to be mostly what you're familiar with if you've driven a later series Land Rover 2, 2A, or 3. All of that stuff sort of came and was designed and sort of laid out with the 80-inch. And so generally they're the same. Now, specifically, there are some things about the 80-inch that if you're looking for one, you want to check because it can be costly. And, most people are going to say 80-inch should be an original car, and that may not be your preference, but certainly those cars that are original hold their value the best, and that means look for a car that's complete. It can be an expensive project if you buy an incomplete car. So a few good publications that deal with the 80-inch Land Rover talk about the 80-inch Land Rover that you can kind of look at for reference to see, how complete is this car? What is it really missing? Because, as we've talked about before on the show, Land Rovers are made up of a lot of parts, and surprisingly, they can still run and be usable with, I would say, between a quarter and a third of those.
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a third can be more than that on some days, depending on your climate. Yeah,
and that happens, and people through the process of servicing or working on the cars. A lazy person might not put that fan shroud back, might not put that battery tie down back, might not put that, whatever back on the car.
None of them have the battery tie down. The battery tie down's always gone.
None of them. It's always that stuff is missing. It seems like the carburetors and alternators and charging system, those are the common things that people work on, and not all the pieces tend to go back where they came from. So another thing that happens with these cars is, they were built with all Whitworth fasteners.
Yeah.
And so it's not uncommon for people to substitute standard or metric fasteners in the place of a hard to get Whitworth fastener. And, some people are intimidated by the Whitworth fasteners on the early Land Rovers. Series 1s have pretty much predominantly Whitworth fasteners throughout the drivetrain and body. But the fasteners are pretty well available, and the tools are available and inexpensive. They're the tools are almost cheaper than SAE or metric tools.
You can get a set of King Dick spanners that are very expensive, but you can also get just regular spanners that cost no more than anything else.
Even the King Dick ones are maybe $100, and an equivalent Snap-on set in SAE or metric is many hundreds of dollars. So
they don't mention anything about Kings or Dicks, and both of those things on your wrenches are great.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar, King Dick is a brand of tool which is made in Abington in the UK, and their logo is a bulldog, which is
tiny
the King Dick.
Bulldog. Yep, tiny little bulldog. They're great. They're extremely well made. And the Whitworth tools, there is some fluctuation. I have a set of sockets that just don't fit properly because they're just too garbagey. I think I got them at a Land Rover thing in the UK. I got them at a one of the bunches of parts in a muddy field shows in the UK. But a good quality set is not really that hard to find, and they're wonderful.
Some other good brands are Koken or Gordon. They make good Whitworth tools, but there are some Indian-made brands that maybe aren't, dimensionally accurate and should be avoided for all intents and purposes. At any rate, back to the cars, the 80-inch. There's a few pieces on the 80-inch that are critical to its function and maybe a little bit more expensive or hard to get. The steering box is one of those. The steering box on an 80-inch is, the parts availability for it is improving. It's getting better. Land Rover has produced some steering boxes for those, and design and development has made some steering boxes for the right-hand drive cars. The worms and nuts are starting to become more readily available for refurbishing those, but that good steering feel on an 80-inch is almost always absent because frequently they're worn. But if you get a good steering box, you're lucky. And if you're not, be prepared to spend some money on that particular aspect of those cars. The frames and bulkheads.
I saw a post from someone on Instagram that had just picked up an entire crate of left-hand drive 80-inch steering shafts from Phil Bashel. And so that's a pretty much worldwide lifetime supply of left-hand steering columns.
He's got 150 of them, and he actually messaged me on the Instagram
saying, "Hey, I've got 150. Do you want 150 steering columns?" Well,
actually, that fellow is he's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Trying to remember.
I did notice that they were craning the crate of steering columns into the back of a Defender, a new Defender, which is very cool. it's nice to see that car being used. And I wasn't sure. We'll have to ask him. It looked like it might be the van version, the sort of working truck Defender, although it didn't have the divider between the rear seats and the front, or the rear cargo area rather than the front seats. But it did have the seats folded down. So it does, coincidentally, those of you who were wondering, and I know it's quite a number of you, will a 150 Land Rover 80-inch steering columns fit in the back of a new Land Rover Defender? And the answer is yes. Yeah, it will. You can shove that whole crate back there. And it fits real
Callum
nice.
Barrow is the guy's name, and his Instagram is CG Barrow, and he's quite a talented machinist, and he's actually making new steering box nuts for those. So hopefully he'll be a resource for those 80-inch owners who are looking to restore a car. But
and there's quite a few little artisan, sort of makers of 80-inch parts out there. There's some great stuff. Certainly a decade ago, that was not the case. You couldn't get anything. But
yeah, and that actually brings up a good point. Bob Jones in the UK has recently passed away, who has made historically a lot of Series 1 parts, and he will be missed. But he's definitely of the cadre of old elven men who make Series Land Rover parts in the UK, and he's very much a part of the Land Rover cottage industry, making these special pieces for early cars. So, but it seems like there's some younger fellows like Alan who are stepping in to take that place and carry on that legacy of making parts and keeping those available for enthusiasts and supplying.
And we're going to have the CKD guys on the show to talk all about. They've got, man alive, drawers for a mile of tiny little 80-inch parts and every little nut and bolt and screw and thing. And
they're doing good work
on the show. Yeah, they're doing great work. And of course, there's Pangolin 4x4. If you can get a hold of those guys, some could be depending on the time of day that you call, your grumpiness level. There's places now that you can get that stuff. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be having to hunt through the muddy fields in the UK or on eBay, in the UK eBay, and grabbing up those little bits, and maybe they were great and maybe they were certainly. I have bags full of rusty little parts of things that you buy a bag full of that stuff, and hopefully there's
no one needs to hear about your bags of rusty stuff.
Got a rusty bag here. I'm gonna send those. I'm gonna bag that all up. I'm gonna send that up to you. A whole bag of rusty bits.
So, with any Land Rover, you got to look for rust. And, the 80 inches, they rust just like most Land Rovers, where the wheels kick up debris, and particularly problematic around the, bulkhead area, the upper bulkhead. The lower bulkhead doesn't rust as much as it does on the later cars, but the upper bulkhead, like kind of where the steering column mounts on either side, and where the door post meets the footwell, that's a really common area for 80 inches to rust. And then under the windshield seal, if you are looking at an 80 inch and you can, fold down the windshield, look underneath the seal if you can pry it up a little bit. Those are all common areas for the firewalls to rust. And the battery tray, where it might have had battery acid on it, that is another common area for corrosion on those cars. But 80 inches are great cars. They're super practical, and they're super fun, and they're super small and easy to store. Nobody should have an excuse why they don't have a Series 1 80-inch Land Rover in their garage if they like Land Rovers.
I agree. You'll never regret the day that you purchase your Series 1. You'll regret plenty of days subsequently, but the day you buy it is going to be great. No, it is a joy, and I completely agree with Ike. Having the windshield folded down and the hood and door tops and everything off is a pretty special thing. And,
it's really nice.
If you haven't been hit by a June bug in the face going 45 miles an hour in your Series 1, you haven't lived. So it's a good time. They're an absolute joy. I love mine. I love all of my Land Rovers a lot, but I think generally speaking, people love the 80-inch. It's a
crowd pleaser.
It sure is. So speaking of working on your rusty old Land Rover, you have, Ike, a tip-top tool tip that also is a little bit of an internet comments, answering the internet comments as well. So I heard you were in a discussion with one of our friends from Down Under about removing some bushings from his Land Rover.
That's right. Yeah. No, there's a Instagram account run by a fellow in Australia, and he's actually a columnist for Land Rover Monthly, I believe. I think his Instagram handle is Dabo Down Under, and he's got quite a following there in Australia and does some restoration work on cars. And recently he posted up a video of himself, with a leaf spring, and he was drilling out the suspension bushing. So like drilling a series of holes in the rubber around the suspension bushing, and then driving out the metal portions, the inner and outer sleeves, with a pneumatic punch. And man, that looked like a lot of work. And there were comments, and some people, suspension bushings on Land Rovers is something that we'll have to talk about in the future. It's an unpleasant job.
It is.
But people have all kinds of homebrew methods for pressing them in or burning them out, or drilling them out, or using hole saws or pneumatic punches, and all this stuff. And so I watched him do this video, and it looked horrific. So we do these suspension bushings a lot, and the ones in the leaf springs are among the easiest to do. The ones in the chassis, especially the long ones, are a little harder. But there's no reason you should have to go through all of that effort on a leaf spring, replacing the suspension bushing on a leaf spring on a series Land Rover. So I told him the trick to doing this, and I'll tell our listeners too, that the trick to replacing the leaf spring bushings is to take a sharp chisel and drive it where the eye meets itself. So there's like a little split in the in the spring eye, to drive a chisel into that split, and that will take away the tension that's holding the spring bushing in place, and you can actually just tap it out with a punch with very little effort. And so it doesn't require any burning or hole saws or drilling or all this other sort of thing. And then you can also push the new bushing in with the chisel still in place, and then remove the chisel, and it'll hold it tight. And so that's how we do it, and it takes way, 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 way less time than sort of these traditional methods that people like to sadistically subject themselves to.
That makes sense. No, it makes good sense. And compared to a lot of other methods that I've seen, that makes that's what is the factory recommended? Like, what is the workshop manual of the ye old bushing replacement? Like the guy, undoubtedly with like a goat standing by him or something, little cartoon guy in the pork pie hat. What do they suggest for
I think there's all kinds of like rituals and sacrifices and bloodletting and leeches,
ring of sand and
the bad humors and these sorts of things, and then if everything just goes right and it's like the right time of the lunar cycle,
right?
Then
that's
then
important.
The suspension bushing will come out. I'm pretty sure that's what it says in the manual.
Yeah. That makes sense. No, that makes sense. The correct incantation. And again, the wrong one will open a portal to a hell dimension. So you just got to be, which could also just be trying to get the bushing out of the spring as well. Many people define it that way. Well, that's good. That's a good tip, and relatively simple. Doesn't require huge amounts of giant equipment or anything. Yeah.
No, it's great.
So to close out today, I thought we'd do another round of Land Rover Internet Roundup. So we've got some interesting things happening in the World Wide Web of Land Rovers, the wild World Wide Web of Land Rovers. The weird wild world. All
right. We get it.
So our good friend Scott Preston is driving across the United States in his Range Rover, classic Range Rover, and that's admirable enough. That's a challenge enough, but he's also planning on listening to every episode of the Underpowered Hour on the way to make it just that much more difficult to get through.
Do we know how he's paying for this trip? That seems like an awfully big expenditure in fuel.
Yeah, I don't know. Just having all of the work it takes to listen to the show for that amount of time. There's a certain amount of psychotherapy that will be necessary on the at the end. But no, and they're going along. I'm sort of following them on the Facebook, and he messaged us. So we're going to have to talk to Scott when he arrives at the other side and see how it went and what kind of lasting emotional damage the listening to that the show for that long has caused. So we're interested in seeing that. Our good buddy Joe over at the Lost Cause Ranch. Speaking of things that are difficult to deal with. Well, first of all, he did a really great cooler review, a plug-in 12-volt cooler review that isn't one of the ARBs or the super expensive ones. He was one he bought off Amazon and has been using it, hasn't turned it off for a year or something, and it's just seemed to be working great. And
it's the refrigerator in his house. I think
it's the refrigerator in his house. That's all he uses now is the camping refrigerator. It's great. And
there's one in every room.
It's amazing. Yeah, anytime you need a soda, it's just right there, ready to go. So it was good. And his two Nadas, they're in the process. He and his brother of going through those. And ooh boy, he's a braver man than I. Although I don't know that he didn't dig it out of somebody's backyard covered in tarps, but you could have. It certainly seems like it's of that ilk. So some pretty hilarious shots of them lifting the car up with the Benpack hoist and part of the suspension just sort of staying on the ground as the chassis sort of goes up, and some problems with the second one they have, number 52, has the 6-cylinder engine in it. I believe it's 52, maybe it's 59, but they unfortunately seems to be seized right now. So we'll have to left it on a cliffhanger if some of the magic oil could get that unlocked or not. We'll have to see. So that was good. And then our buddies Ivan and Dan over at Rover Talk, the other Land Rover podcast, has.
Is there another one? I didn't think there was.
No, I mean there's us and there's them. I don't know. Is there one more? I don't know.
Might be,
but maybe they had 3 great episodes in the last little while. The 3-door disco that Ivan bought and brought in from Spain and drove around on the frozen lake there up and around the Chicago area. It broke down. Well, it didn't break down. The heat just didn't work, and they stopped at a local high school auto shop. They managed to find one, I guess, in the upper part of Michigan. They still exist.
They still exist.
Yeah, and they were able to give him some space and able to help him out get it working again, so they didn't all freeze to death. They did a great Darren Gap episode talking about that expedition, which we've of course talked about before, and had some fun stuff there. Mentioned your favorite Pathfinder Series 3. And then just recently, there was a wooden picket Range Rover on Bring a Trailer, one of the convertible Range Rovers, which are my favorite because they're so absurd. They look like a Bowinkle villain should drive them. Like they're just like this total, and the interiors are just out of control. But they did a really great episode just looking at all of the weird custom Range Rovers over the years. So if you don't listen to Rover Talk, you certainly should. They're good friends of ours, good friends of the show. And they're doing some fun shows and stuff. So definitely give them a listen. We're working on doing some Top Gear-esque collaborations with Ivan and Dan over the course of this year. Hopefully we get up to something in the fall maybe. But until then, Ike, it's been a slice. It's been a good time. So as always, please head over to the Underpowered Hour store and get yourself some merchandise. If you feel so inclined to support us on Her Majesty's Patreon, head on over there. You get an ad-free version of the show, which I don't feel like I mentioned enough. If you guys are tired of the Anchor podcast ads, we're working on getting some other sponsors as well, so you don't just have to listen to that ad over and over again. And I promise I will re-record it at some point, so at least it's slightly different. I don't think Ike has ever listened to an ad-supported version of the show, so he doesn't know all the things that I talk about him specifically in that ad.
I'm aware.
Oh, okay. All right. But at any rate, head on over to Patreon if you're interested. We do appreciate your support. And with that, Ike, I think that's all we've got for this week. Unfortunately, because of all of our wooden picket conversation, we have not had an opportunity to have our friends from Nando's on the show. So they'll unfortunately have spent this time on hold again for no reason to listen to your review. But we'll get to that in a future episode. So until then, good luck and Godspeed.
All right, Steven. Looking forward to it. Take care.